So yeah, the title's a little bit clickbaity. But you know what? It's not really clickbait when your videos aren't monetized. Yeah, people aren't going to see. These videos are for my subscribers. If you're not my subscriber, you're not going to see the video. And that's fine. I don't want a million people to see these videos. They're just for you. But yeah, I've had the Switch Lite for, what, 3 years now? I mean, I bought it pretty shortly after the Switch Lite came out, so yeah, I think it's been about 3 years. And yeah, in that time, I've acquired a fair amount of games. But there is certain games, like Zelda, where it would be nice if I could play the game on the big TV. For me, these bigger games, it's a little easier to see compared to the small screen. If my wife wants to watch, because, sometimes she can watch me play and, help me look for secrets or give me tips. And, obviously other games like Mario Kart, where you're going to have, local multiplayer, it's kind of necessary, isn't it? It's necessary to... I mean, yeah, in theory, you could do local multiplayer on this, I believe. I mean, why not? I could pair some Bluetooth controllers, I believe. Even though the Joy-Cons aren't removable, I'm pretty sure I can still pair. I never tried it. Never had the need to. But in theory, could you not, prop this up with a couple of external controllers and play local multiplayer? But why would you want to do that? Yeah, obviously you want to be able to have that on the big screen if you're going to do local multiplayer. So, as much as I like the Switch Lite as a handheld, if you never want to plug it into a TV and you're only going to use it as a handheld, the screen is a little bit smaller if you're okay with that. If you got really good eyes, and that's the smaller screen's fine. Some people like the slightly smaller screen because it makes the 720p look a little bit sharper. Technically, the DPI on this is going to be higher than the DPI on the Switch or the Switch OLED, which have larger and larger screens, but they're still 720p. So some people like the fact the screen is small, but it's only 720p. Some people actually like that. So and the fact that like I've said, the fact that Joy-Cons aren't detachable means that it's very sturdy when it's in your hand. It feels like it's just, well, it is. It's one solid piece, and it feels a little sturdier. The Joy-Cons have a little bit of wobble on a real Switch when you're holding it in your hand. So as a handheld, there is many benefits to the Switch Lite. But for me, the fact that you can't hook it up to a TV, and the fact the screen is a little smaller, and actually for me, for my eyesight isn't great when something is closer to my face. So if I hold the Switch way out, then it's fine. But when I'm holding it at a comfortable distance to be holding it at, it's borderline. I can make out everything, but some of the small text is a little hard to read. The slightly larger screen actually does make a difference. So, point is, I've always had it in the back of my mind, like, it'd be nice to have one that could, it'd be nice to have a regular Switch that you can hook up to the TV, but, like, I'm not going to go out and spend, $400. It's $399 Canadian for a Switch still. The Switch Lite's $449 Canadian, or sorry, the Switch OLED is $449 Canadian. But the Switch, as far as I understand, as far as I remember, the Switch, when it launched 6 years ago, was $399 Canadian. And still to this day, it's $399 Canadian. Like, they've never lowered the price of the Switch in 6 years. And I've always said that's ridiculous. And as we got into 3 years in, 4 years in, 5 years in, I was saying, don't buy a Switch. Like, do not spend $399 on a Switch now, when there's going to be a Switch 2 out probably at the end of the year. I'm guessing. I don't know. But obviously there's going to be a replacement for the Switch sooner rather than later. And it's probably going to be backwards compatible. At least I would assume, I would hope. I know people are talking about how they're going to do that, but they need to They need to find a way, I think, to have a more powerful Switch 2. Hopefully still using some sort of an NVIDIA SoC. Maybe they can get NVIDIA. By then they'll come out with the Tegra 3 or whatever processor, so that they can have backwards compatibility. I think that is important. It would be really cool if the Switch 2 could play all the physical Switch cartridges. We'll see. I would certainly hope so. Anyways, more and more lately, especially having just picked up this, I've been like, yeah, I really do want to play this on the TV now. You know, it's such a big game. And again, like I said, I've always kind of felt that way with this. So, yeah, I was like, you know what? I'll look for a cheap Switch, because, you know what? Maybe I can find one on Facebook Marketplace that has, you know what? Maybe the screen is scratched up. Maybe the battery life isn't very good. But none of that would matter to me. I would still have the Switch Lite for portable use. And I could buy a Switch that literally the Joy-Cons are broken, or it's missing the Joy-Cons, the screen is scratched up, the battery is shot. As long as it worked in the dock and it worked in dock mode, that would be all that would matter. And I was like, you know, if I could find a cheap one, well, I went on Facebook Marketplace and I looked, and I saw most of them were $280 to $300. And, you know, most of them were in decent condition. Maybe they came with a game or two. But, yeah, couldn't really find any cheaper than like $280 Canadian. Until I found one for $250. And I actually offered them $240, and they said yes. And this was the classic Switch with the red and the blue Joy-Cons. And it had a screen protector on it, and it had rubber grips over the Joy-Cons. They said it had little use, and it looked like it was in fairly good condition from what you could see. And the fact it had, you know, those rubber protectors on there, even on the thumbsticks, and the screen protector on there, it probably would have been in pretty good condition underneath all that. The only thing really wrong with it was missing the power adapter, or the charger. But for me, I was like, that's fine, because I'm pretty sure the Switch Lite comes with the same power brick, power adapter, charger, whatever you want to call it, as a regular Switch. You know, even though in theory the Switch Lite doesn't need as much, it wouldn't need as much wattage, wouldn't need as much watts, wouldn't need as much power, because the Switch can't dock. It can't display 1080p. It can't output surround sound over HDMI. It doesn't have to charge the batteries in the Joy-Cons, because there is no Joy-Cons, there is no batteries, extra batteries for the controllers. And, you know, the system uses more power when it's docked. It actually overclocks the processor a little bit, or runs the processor at a higher clock speed, so that it can play some games at closer to 1080p, as opposed to when you're in portable mode and it's only going to be 720p at the most, because the screen's only 720p. So, yeah, in theory, the Switch Lite would use less power, but as far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong, they just included the same power adapter. So I was like, you know, that's fine if it's missing the power adapter and it's cheaper. $240 is the cheapest that I've seen on Facebook Marketplace. And I was about to buy that one, and I mentioned it to my coworker the next day. I'm like, after work, I might be going to pick up this like Switch for $240. And he goes, oh, well, why don't you just buy mine off me? Oh, okay. He's like, yeah, I bought a Switch for my wife, like, you know, a couple years ago. And we barely played it. Like, it maybe has like 8 hours of use on it. And he goes, oh, why don't you just buy the Switch off me for $200? I was like, okay, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, $200. That's way cheaper than any of the ones that I've seen on Facebook Marketplace. I know this one's in great shape. I know everything on it's going to work. You know, you buy one on Facebook Marketplace, and even if it looks like it's in good shape, you get home, and what if... Cat just walks by. What if the cart slot doesn't work? You just never know, right? So the fact that, yeah, $200, way cheaper than $200 Canadian, by the way, is like $150 US. So $150 US for a basically almost like new Switch is a pretty good deal. Again, way cheaper than any of the ones that I've seen off Facebook Marketplace. So there's the box. And yeah, not much to see other than the fact that the box is there and it's in good shape. And I opened it up, and the way it was all packaged in there, yeah, it basically looked like new. I've maybe got some fingerprints on it now. That's from me. when I opened this thing up and started pulling it all out, yeah, no doubt it very much did look like new. So yeah, I've never used the kickstand. Switch Lite doesn't have a kickstand, so it's a little weird. You have to flap that open to get to the SD card slot, I found. But yeah, I got a little kickstand there. Yeah, it's in very good condition. The only real concern I had at this point was okay, so I've been playing Tears of the Kingdom a little bit on my Switch Lite, and now I need to transfer that save game to the new Switch, if I can. Now, I don't have the Nintendo Online subscription or whatever they call it. I don't pay for their online service. That also gets you the cloud service where all your save games for your games save on their cloud. I don't have that. I don't pay, the monthly or the yearly subscription for that. So I was like, well, how do I get my save game from the Switch Lite to the new Switch? They actually make it pretty easy. If you just go into settings and data management, there's a thing there for your save games, and it'll show you a list of all your games. And in this case, I just picked Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and you can say send to another Switch, and you put in your Nintendo Switch account thing, and boom, right over Wi-Fi, as I'll show you here, it was basically sending the save file games from the Lite and receiving them on the new one, just right over Wi-Fi. It was actually pretty easy. I was surprised that worked so easily. So yeah, that was no big deal. The larger screen is, I was kind of surprised because I think it's only, I'm guessing here, I don't have this in front of me. I think the Switch Lite is like a 5.5 inch screen, and the regular Switch is like a 6.1 inch screen, and then the OLED's a little bit bigger still. But the going from the Switch Lite to the Switch, it didn't seem like the screen would, size would be that much of a difference. But I think, as you can maybe kind of see here, when it does come to the small text, it makes just enough of a difference. And for me, with my eyesight, when I'm holding it at a comfortable distance, it is just enough of a difference that, that small text goes from being kind of hard to read to not really hard to read. So that's kind of nice. The slightly larger screen is kind of nice. Yeah, so I guess that's it. Oh, yeah, well, I have two of these 8-bit Do. It's funny because everyone says it's 8-bit Do like Nintendo, but I've seen recently some of the bigger YouTube channels that review these a lot. I've heard some of them say 8-bit Do, so I don't know. Is it 8-bit Do or is it 8-bit Do? I was leaning towards 8-bit Do, as in Nintendo, but now I don't know again. Yeah, I've got a few of these. I picked these up when these were on clearance at Walmart for like $20, and I picked up two of them. And honestly, they haven't got a lot of use, to be truthful. Not as much use as I would have liked. But yeah, when I was buying this, I was like, I'm pretty sure I can use these. And of course, these are meant for Switch. They even have the share button and the menu button that's meant for Switch, and your select and start is also your minus and your plus, which is basically on the Switch. It's minus and plus is basically your select and start buttons. Yeah, this is basically a Switch controller, more than anything. So yeah, obviously it works. So I paired that. And yeah, I've been using that. So I'm actually glad that these are going to get more use now. They have a purpose now. And it's great that I was able to pick those up for $20. Was kind of crazy. I don't even know why these were on clearance. I at the time, I think it was a slightly newer model. Wasn't it they changed something because Nintendo got mad that this looked too much like a Super Nintendo controller? So I ended up like changing the color of the buttons or something. I don't know. Something like that, maybe. But they were $20, which was crazy cheap. So yeah, I'm glad I'm using those. I'm glad I can use those now. That's awesome. And yeah, so I got it all hooked up to the dock, to the TV, and obviously that just works. So yeah, that's awesome. $200 Canadian, $150 US. You just can't beat that. It was a great deal, and you know, some could argue you should have just bought that in the first place. Got to face the facts. Eventually, you want to hook it up to the TV. Now, that being said, switch on a 55-inch 4K TV. Let's be honest, it ain't pretty. Tears of the Kingdom on my 55-inch 4K TV. My wife made a comment like, "Geez, this looks like PlayStation 3." And you know what? She was not wrong. When you're indoors, some of the areas, it looks pretty good with the modern lighting and everything, and the cloud system looks great with the lighting. But there's sometimes when you're just like outdoors, you're just like, yeah, wow, like it literally looks like a PS3 game, like an early PS3 game at that. And that was somewhat to be expected, obviously, and knowing that most games aren't going to run at 1080p. There's a lot of upscaling in this one. There's a lot of weird artifacting and aliasing and blurriness just from being such a low resolution, possibly lower than 900p at times. And then, on a 55-inch 4K TV, that does not look great. But I kind of knew that going in, and that's not really the point. The point is it's more comfortable, it's easier to see, other people can watch, and if you want to do the multiplayer co-op, again, Mario Kart 8, you kind of need it. So that was expected, but it is what it is. The Switch is 6 years old, and it's a handheld. Even though it came out after the PS4, it's nowhere near as powerful as a PS4. No, that shows. My wife's been playing Genshin Impact on PS4. We have a PS4, not even a PS4 Pro. We have the base PS4 Slim. And, even Genshin Impact on there, it's like, you can tell, like, wow, they're really pushing the FSR. That game, oh, you know what? This game uses FSR too. They both use FSR for their upscaling, and it shows in a bad way. And FSR can look great. Like, if you have a 4K monitor and you're doing, like, FSR quality, it's going to look great. But when your game's running at, like, sub 900p... I don't know what Genshin Impact's running at on the PS4, but, this looks way worse than that, and that already doesn't look amazing by modern standards, but, again, knew that. So, it wasn't a surprise. I'm just saying. But yeah, that's in excellent condition. Everything on it just works like new, and so that's great. And I guess that's it. See you guys later.